Hi there, it's Billy Tarasio. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one. We are talking to Tyler and Yasmin Hansen, and they are a divorced couple that is successfully co-parenting a very young child, and they've been divorced the entire time that they've been co-parenting. So it's a different situation, and they're doing it successfully. And I can tell you, as a divorce attorney, I've seen many people do it unsuccessfully. So I know the secrets of doing it wrong, and now we'll get to learn how to make it work. Tyler and Yasmin, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So who wants to start? Tell me how we got here.
Ty, do you want to start or do you want me to kick us off?
Go ahead, you got it.
Okay, so we were married pretty young. We were married at 18 years old. And so Tyler was in the military for what?
8 years, yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
And so for the entirety of our marriage, we were in the military. So, we kind of did that whole thing. And then in 2019, we started talking about divorce. And I was at the time pregnant. So obviously, hard time for both of us. I think just the divorce in itself. But then also having to make decisions on a child that wasn't born yet. So it was tough. It was really hard. We did everything on our own. We didn't have any attorneys or anything, no mediators the entire time. We were able to, kind of come to all of those decisions together, throughout the entire divorce. And even now we haven't had to seek mediation or anything like that. So, yeah.
So Tyler, you were in the military?
Yep. Yeah, I was in the Marines for, so I was deployed for a period of time. I was in the Marines for 8 years, and during our marriage and in the beginning, it was pretty tough on it. I was in the field more than I was home for the first 4-5 years of my military career. So that was pretty tough. It definitely had an effect on some stuff as well. But yeah, it's in the military.
Okay, so when you decided to divorce, it's unusual that two people come to that decision at the same time. Usually it's difficult. Some person gets there before somebody else, and it sounds like you two were on the same page. Is that right?
Not to start, I wouldn't say. I did ask for it, so I did bring it up at first, and then we did talk about it and then start moving forward in that aspect. It wasn't easy by no means. Like, we talk about it as if we just made it happen as a seamless process, but it was not. It was rocky. There was rough times, but I think with her being pregnant and us being able to just come to the conclusion that we were going to do it for him and the happiness of him over ours, it kind of made things easier, especially looking towards the future. Because it wasn't, if you're having a kid, you're not thinking about your own happiness. You're thinking about what's going to make him happy. Because if you're unhappy in a marriage, it's going to have the same, if not worse, effects, I guess, of a divorce. So we were just really trying to put him first, and we always have. And like I said, it's not easy. There are times when we're at each other's throats. I wouldn't say in like a bad way. I would say just disagreeing. We never ever let it get out of hand. It's just like disagreeing, but we do put him first all the time. And it has made things a lot easier as far as the divorce process, custody, and everything that we've encountered so far. And he's only 2.5. So he's, it's been going well for 2.5 years.
Which I think is great, considering that I feel like in the early stages, I know people who have children and, they're still not even speaking at 2 years, of post-divorce. And we were at soccer games together, you know what I mean? Like last month, 2 months ago, or however long ago it was. And so, it takes time. And like he said, it's definitely not something that came easily. I think we've put in a lot of work, and to get to this point. And it was very hard, super difficult for all of us. But yeah, I mean, we made it work. So yeah.
Do you agree, Yasmin, that the divorce was easier because you were pregnant?
Um, no, I think what Tyler meant was that it was easier when we shifted like the focus.
Mm,
Because for me, I mean, obviously, like a divorce in general is difficult for anyone. It's
mm.
life changing. For me, being pregnant, it was so hard. But I think the moment that because I just chose not to, I could not even sit and think about the divorce when I was pregnant. I had to completely pivot my mindset because I like just didn't know that I could handle it. You're trying to handle pregnancy. A pregnancy alone is life changing, right? You going into motherhood, and this is my first child, like going into motherhood and what kind of mother I'm going to be, what kind of parents we're going to be, etc. Right? So I think all of that is difficult. I think in that moment, I chose to focus on my child, my pregnancy, and the health of my pregnancy. And that was my only focus. I think the divorce stuff I kind of dealt with later, I think. And maybe both of us kind of did it that way. I don't know. I don't know if it was more like that for him, but I think, during the pregnancy, it was like, we got to get through this first and then we'll get through that later kind of thing. But we did have everything filed by the time our son was born. After he was born is when everything was finalized.
You
For
finalized it.
clarifying, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It was finalized after your son was born.
Yes.
Okay.
So from what we understood was that we couldn't file our paperwork until after he was born, because they wouldn't, like a judge wouldn't sign off. And I mean, you would know this better than anyone, but
Yeah.
a judge wouldn't sign off on a custody agreement for an unborn child, essentially.
Well, that's true. And that's the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. Custody of newborns is incredibly hard.
Mhm. Yeah.
I have gotten more comments
I
on
saw the TikTok.
TikTok about
Yeah.
newborn custody than any of my other like hundreds of TikToks. People have strong feelings about
Mhm.
what should happen with newborns. What did you do?
So I just wanted to say we saw the TikTok, and I think that was really what kind of like sparked this whole thing, was because we actually, after the TikTok, started talking about it, because it was it was a little while ago, but it was, I think that was, I'm going to try and phrase this carefully. That was the hardest part of our divorce. But I think it was not necessarily deciding custody, because we already knew what that was going to look like, because we have 50-50 custody, and we knew that that's what we wanted to do. What was difficult was the first year of his life. And that's what we were struggling with, because I wanted to nurse, and it was important for me to nurse and to have that bond with my son, and whatever. But it was also very important for him to bond with his dad, and for him to have parenting time. And I think that was really like the hardest part for us, was trying to decide that first year, because I wanted one thing and he wanted another, and kind of trying to find a middle ground, which is what we did. We found a middle ground. And I mean, I think it was difficult because it took us a while to, a lot of the decisions that we make together, they usually kind of happen pretty quick. And I think this one, it was like something that took us like a couple of weeks to kind of like finally get to an agreement, because we both felt so strongly about it. So it was definitely one of the ones that took the longest, but yeah, we just came to an agreement on it. We basically, what happened was, we were going to do 50-50 from day one. But it was trying to kind of ease our son into that schedule. So for the first 2 weeks of him being born, dad and I were together under the same roof, trying to figure out how to be parents, right? And so we did that together. And that was the first 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, dad had to go back to work. I was on maternity leave, and dad visited often, was over almost every day, I think, or every other day, whatever his schedule would allow. And then it was after the first month that we started inching into a 50-50 schedule. So we have a 2-2-3 schedule is what we follow. So it was kind of like, dad would have baby for a day. And so for a week, he would have a day or 2 days during the day. And then we would start overnight schedule, incorporating that into the schedule. And then until we got to the point where we were a 2-2-3, but we trekked back because I'm weird about calendars. And I was like, I have the calendar from when we were, because we had such a crazy schedule. So by month 3, he was on a 2-2-3 schedule.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like nursing the whole time, and we made it work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So your 3-month-old was doing a 2-2-3 schedule, and you were nursing when you had your baby and pumping when you didn't.
Yeah. I remember him calling me. It was like 10 o'clock at night, like, hey, I'm running out of milk. And we lived down the street from each other, like, okay, I'm coming. And I'd like drive over there and like bring him however much milk I had in my freezer. And like, and because he was solely on like breast milk for, I want to say like 6-7 months. And then we started doing like kind of like a half and half. We started doing formula. When we started doing formula, then it started getting easier because we didn't have to do like the late night breast milk runs,
Wow.
But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Tyler, what was that like for you?
First off, I got to give her a lot of recognition for allowing that, because I know how tough it was even at the time. So I always tell her, like, thank you for letting that happen. And it's great that she had enough trust in me as a new father to be able to do that with everything that was going on as well. But I think I made it a priority to show her and prove to her that, like, my son is number one, our son is number one. And I continued to show that, and we were able to make it work. But yes, it wasn't easy being a new parent, especially like by myself. And then when he has that bond with his mom. So no, it wasn't easy. Definitely a lot of struggles trying to raise him on my own, as well as I'm sure she's encountered as well, especially during those younger years. But just the grace that she had to allow me to have that opportunity, I owe her a lot for that. And we made it work. It wasn't easy. It's tough, but we did what we had to do and put him first to allow him to have a relationship with both of us that early in his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know very many people who have done that.
Yeah, I find that we're often like the unicorn in a lot of these situations, because I know a lot of families. I know Tyler knows a lot of families that, co-parenting is this ugly, nasty thing. And it makes me sad. It makes me incredibly sad, because we have such a great relationship. Just yesterday, I was over, to pick him up and, whatever. And like, it was out of schedule, you know what I mean? But that's because we have that bond, we have that relationship where we can communicate. If, he needs what I need, whatever, can I, have the baby for an hour, whatever on, each other's days, and we can make it work, and it makes me sad that some people don't even like see their kids on days that they're with mom or dad. Like, we FaceTime every morning, every night, with our son who's 2, and he asks like, oh, mommy or daddy, and he wants to talk to both of us, and we make it work, and I think it makes it easier that we have a great relationship, but some parents don't even get that, and like, that makes me so sad, it's just that people experience that, or that's their experience.
Absolutely. Can I ask, are either of you re-partnered?
Mm-mm.
No.
Currently, no, but we have been at points in our relationship. And
Correct.
what she was speaking on as well, like, it wasn't easy to just come to these agreements. It isn't always I'll ask for him and I can get him. It's if it lines up with each other's schedules and everything. So there are times when you have to like swallow your pride and be like, no, it's not going to work this time. And
Yeah.
try not to be spiteful with your partner. I believe it's happened between us where we're a little
Sure.
spiteful at each other, of course,
Yeah.
it's human, but we're able to like move past that. So it's not always rainbows and butterflies. We do
Sure.
encounter speed bumps.
This is crazy. So you're telling me that you two basically have the same child rearing philosophies, or is that it? Are you fairly aligned in how you make decisions and the things that are important to you?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like if we ever disagree on something, it's something that's kind of like out of like left field, you know, it's never anything on like how we raise our son. I think that's something we've always been in line with, which has made it easier, I would say. And I don't mean to keep making it sound like it's rainbows and butterflies, because I have that tendency. I know I do. And so thanks for, you know, checking me on that. But it's so I tell people all the time that co-parenting is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I think a lot of people, you know, it's so hard, but I like Tyler said, it's like we have always kept it in mind that we are doing this for one reason and one reason only, and that is for our son. I love him with my entirety. His father loves him with it, you know, and that's what makes this easier. You know, not that it's not something that's easy, but it makes it easier to when you have that mindset, because I feel like some parents, you know, don't put their kids first, and that's where you get these, you know, really toxic environments for the children and this and that and whatever, because they're acting selfishly, and that might be a bold statement, but I mean that's just kind of at the end of the day how I see it personally, because we do have to, you know, think about the other, like our son, you know, we have to put him first, and he's the reason why we're making these decisions. And the moment that it's about me or it's about him, then we got to kind of like back up and start over, you know.
Can you give me an example of something you've disagreed about?
Man.
It's
been a little bit since
sleep training.
Yeah, it has been a little bit.
Training, like all of these are kind of big, stressful things.
I think I got a good one.
Okay.
Tantrums. How we handle tantrums.
Sure.
Because he's at that twos tantrum, like, oh, we have tantrums like yesterday. We had a tantrum. We had a big one. So I think we have different approaches most of the time as far as how we handle something. I think in general, we kind of try our own way, you know, like I'll handle it this way, you'll handle it this way, and then we kind of share what's working, what's not working. But sometimes, you know, I'll disagree with maybe with the way he does it, or he disagrees with the way that I'm doing it, and we kind of just like, you know, listen to the other person, right? Because there's valid reason why they, you know, are disagreeing, and then we kind of, you know, just try our thing, and then like I said, we kind of will report back and, you know, say, well, I've been doing this and it's been working, or I tried this and it did not work, you know. And vice versa. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. Yeah, I think we kind of just stay in our own lanes, I think, in those situations. Like I'll try what I want at home and he'll try what he wants at home. I don't know, Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess it has to do with a lot of the things that we've just recently talked about, is just trusting the other person as a parent.
Yeah.
Now we've had disagreements and we may not have trust in other aspects of our relationship, but as a parent, I've always said she's a good mother, and I always give her that all the time. And I believe it's mutual. So having that trust to be able to have her handle the tantrum, that works for her. I believe in that. Sometimes we do disagree. Like I think she should be a little bit firmer at times, or maybe I think she should handle something else another time. But we talk about it, and it's hard as single parents. You have to play both roles. You have to play disciplinary and loving right after something happens, and it's not easy. Yesterday, I was telling her about it. I got frustrated with this tantrum, and we talked about it, and we did it. But yeah, it's just mostly trusting each other as a partner. I mean, even when she was in a relationship and I was in a relationship after that, it's tough to think that like she's gonna have somebody else around my son. But I told her, I'm like, listen, this is in your hands. I trust you as a mother. Don't bring, some lunatic or somebody around my son. I trust her as a parent that she'll have my son's best interest at heart. And I believe it's mutual in that aspect too, but it's not easy, but putting him first and having the trust as a parent is pretty vital to making this work.
I was just thinking of a phrase that we say all the time is, I trust your judgment.
Yeah.
We say, and sometimes we get to a point in the conversation where I don't think anything else is necessary to say other than I trust your judgment. And then that's kind of like, we don't need to talk about it anymore, and like, if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. And then if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do that. And then, but we always communicate. So at the end of the day, like, it's not like one of us is kept in the dark, with whatever it is that we're trusting each other with. If that makes sense.
Well, I do think the two of you are unicorns. Thank you for sharing your story. There's a lot that we can all take from this. A lot of communication, a lot of benefit of the doubt, a lot of like, I'm hearing a lot of affirmations, a lot of affirmations, by just repeating enough times, like all that matters is the benefit of our son. And I trust that we're on the same page. Like, you're helping bring philosophies closer. But then also at the end of the day, you recognize that there are some decisions that will be made by Tyler at his house, and he will do things the way he wants to. And the same is true for you. And you're both okay with it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
I would just say, don't forget who you're doing this for. At the end of the day, you're doing this for your children. And I think people forget that oftentimes they think about themselves. Because it's hard not to, when you're in a tough situation, you think about me and like what I'm going through, but you got to remember what your kids are going through and what they're going to go through over the next few years. Because this isn't just today or tomorrow or next month. This is years we're going to be doing this, right? Our son is 2, and we're going to be doing this for 18 plus years, because when he gets married, graduation, college, all of those things, we're still both going to be there. So you gotta keep the future in mind. And I think a lot of people forget about that.
It's a good point. And the only other thing I want to say is, I've read that we make all these decisions as parents, so many decisions, how to discipline, how much screen time, whether to sleep train, what's the schedule going to be, what are they going to eat? And long-term, none of those actually have an outcome on how our kids turn out.
Yeah.
Based on those studies. What really matters is like, who are they surrounded by? Do they go to a good school? Are their neighbors good? Do they have role models? That's the only thing that, like, on a very macro level matters. But we as parents can get so convicted in what we believe is right for our child and be so willing to fight for that conviction. But the consequence of fighting for that conviction comes at the expense of what you just described, which is the long-term relationship between the parents.
Yeah.
So thank you both so much. You're new parents, you're young parents, and you just dropped some wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure to download it, forward it to your friends, share it with people. And if you have a story that you'd like to tell on the Modern Divorce Podcast, we would love to have you. Reach out to us, rate this episode, leave a review, and we will see you all again soon.